Hey, how's everyone doing this morning? I hope everyone's having a great week. It's been a busy one here for us after Hurricane Dorian came through last week. We were out of work last week, but we're getting back on track this week, so everything is moving in a really good direction. So this week I wanted to continue talking about the Louisiana Purchase. I've been finding a lot of really great information on this topic. I know this week we were kind of looking at some electronic books through the Oxford University Press database. So I did find two really good ones I wanted to talk about. So the first one I found is called The Nation's Crucible, The Louisiana Purchase and the Creation of America. It is by Peter Castor, and it was written in 2012. And one of the main discussions of this book talks about how the people residing in this French territory were handled following the purchase. So a lot of the people that were residents of the Louisiana Territory found out in the summer of 1803, according to the author, that the U.S. purchased it. And I'm sure for them there were a lot of questions as to how things were going to be processed and handled. And that is where the sitting prefect came in. His name is Pierre Clement Lassalle. He faced the difficult task of explaining this turn of events to the residents of Louisiana. And this had to have been a challenging task for him to handle because, there are a lot of people that are residents there, and like, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be afforded the same opportunity to obtain U.S. citizenship? Are they going to have to pack up and go? Are they going to have to find a way to get back to France? So those are a lot of questions that we're dealing with, and that's something I've never even thought of before either when thinking about the Louisiana Territory, because I feel like a lot of us think Native Americans and where they were living and them being uprooted, but I don't think a lot of people think about the people that were living there who had come over from Europe as to where they were going to go following the Louisiana Purchase. So I think that's just where this book heads in the general direction of explaining was how people were handled following the purchase and just how people were handled as America continued to expand. And I think this book does a really good job of explaining that to us. So the second source I found is called The Constitution of Empire, Territorial Expansion in American Legal History. It is by Gary Lawson and Guy Seidman. It was written in 2004. And I like the general layout of this book because it talks about how the Constitution was used in acquiring this territory, because I didn't think the Constitution talked about like acquiring land and everything. And I was right, according to this book. The document was forged for multiple purposes in mind, but it doesn't cover acquisition, and that was one of Thomas Jefferson's biggest fears over expanding, was that the Constitution didn't allow for this, and so there were a lot of questions raised about it. The Louisiana Territory was a simple expansion, and it contends that even though it was a simple expansion, there were major problems surrounding the acquisition. These problems were that it was unclear whether the U.S. even had the authority and power to buy this land, much less whether France was even permitted to sell it. And that was the biggest issue. And then ultimately, they did end up purchasing it. And the author says that Thomas Jefferson must have just swallowed his doubts or buried them in the Gulf Stream, because we did end up acquiring land. And it actually wasn't until 1828 that Chief Justice John Marshall declared before a unanimous Supreme Court that the Constitution does authorize Congress to be able to acquire land. So, this purchase happened in 1803, and there was another land acquisition in 1818, but at the time it was unknown whether or not the Constitution even authorized that. So I thought this was a really interesting book, and I actually think I'm going to continue reading it because it has a lot of information that I gathered just from the first couple chapters of examining it. So I think this would be a really good book to look into for those of you wanting to learn more about American legal history, especially, in our first 50, 60 years of establishing ourselves, what we had the power to do, what we didn't have the power to do. So I think it'd be a really great book for y'all to go check out too if you get a chance. So I hope this has been informative for you all. I look forward to hearing what everyone has this week. Y'all have a great Saturday, and I will talk to y'all later.